Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. I'm joined by Ken Jenkins, our Deputy County Executive, and we're here to give you the weekly Westchester update. It's a little after 2 o'clock today on Monday, September 27th. We're going to talk a little bit about the current status of the COVID infections here in Westchester County, talk a little bit as well about our response to the floods that hit us almost 4 weeks ago, and we'll be joined in a few minutes by Bridget Gibbons, our Director of Economic Development, who will be talking about the business side of our response to the recent flood that hit us. We'll start with our COVID numbers, as we generally do in these things. Our COVID numbers show continuing improvement over the peak that we had in roughly the middle of August. You may recall the cycle that we've gone through. We had a diminishment the minute we started vaccinations in January from a very high period of 11,500 active cases. That got all the way down at the end of June to less than 200 active cases. That was a major improvement. Hospitalizations were down to single digits, having started out at 588 back in January. Then we saw an uptick because of the Delta variant that hit us throughout most of July and into the middle part of August. So over about a 6-7 week period, we saw a day-by-day increase in the number of active cases, the number of people hospitalized, and the fatality percentages started to rise. And now from the middle of August, we've seen a diminution, a flattening out, and a small diminution. So we're happy to say that as we approach the end of September, this being the last week of September, we're happy to look at statistics that show that there has been a lessening of that increase that came from the Delta variant. All good news for us. In terms of actual numbers from our tracker from New York State yesterday, we now have 2,137 active cases of coronavirus. That is down from a recent peak of about 2,800 cases. So if you do the math, that's about a 25% drop in the number of cases that have happened just from the middle of August till now the end of September. 2,137 cases. Again, that compares very favorably to having 11,500 cases in January, or when this pandemic started, we were over 12,000 active cases. So 2,137 active cases. The last number of hospitalizations we have 63 individuals hospitalized for COVID, and that number has dropped from a recent peak, a mid-August peak of 110 hospitalizations. That's not quite a 50% drop, but close to a 50% drop in the number of people hospitalized, and hospitalizations represent the more severe reaction to the disease. The vast majority of people who get the disease fight it off with their natural antibodies, 80% or so. That 20% portion that are more deeply affected by it may be sick at home, or if seriously sick, they go to the hospital. And then at that point, we also worry about the people that we lose according to the degree of severity. And over the last week, we have lost 2 individuals to COVID, 2 fatalities over the last week. That compares to the prior week where we had 7 fatalities, and the week before that had 6 fatalities. Every fatality is a tragedy. We do not minimize even one person that passes on. But we hope to have a week of 0. We almost got to that point this week, but we're encouraged by the fact that in all 3 of those major indicators, total number of active cases, number of people hospitalized, and number of fatalities, all 3 of those numbers are down in this past week over where they were the weeks prior to that. Excuse me. I would also add that in terms of the numbers of these things, we know that while the Delta variant may be working its way through the system, when we talk about the vaccination numbers, the very high numbers of vaccinations continue to climb, and we're very pleased to note that right now we have 88%, over 88% of our adult population, 18 years of age or older in Westchester County, that have at least 1 vaccination dose, and the vast majority of those people have received both doses. So 729,342 people in Westchester County. It's a county of 1 million people. We have to factor out those that are under the age of 18 because it hasn't been given out, no vaccinations given out to those under the age of 12, and the 12 to 16 range is limited because only the Pfizer vaccine was authorized for them. So 18 and over who are available to have Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson, we have 88% that have had at least 1 vaccination dose, and that is a very high number. If you compare it to the counties in immediate proximity to us, Putnam County is at 83%. We have in the range of 77% in places like Dutchess and Rockland County. Orange County is 71%. We see the Bronx is in a similar 70% range, and New Westchester County at 88% single dose so far. That's very encouraging. In absolute numbers, 729,342 people have been vaccinated with at least one dose, and of that 729,000, 652,000 of them have completed their work. So the difference between the two numbers, roughly in the vicinity of 70,000 people that over the next 2 to 3 weeks will complete their vaccination doses, and we'll have the full county fully vaccinated at that 729,000 mark. What's particularly interesting, I think, is that with all of the pressure about vaccinations, some of the good news, the FDA approval of the Pfizer vaccine a couple of weeks ago, and there's discussion about the booster shots, which we'll touch on in a little bit for those in a certain category. We saw 11,000 first-time vaccinations in the last week. So as much as there is vaccine hesitancy and vaccine resistance from various corners, we are still getting people vaccinated as we go forward, and we're encouraged by that number. And even when there is not yet a formal statewide or nationwide mandate to vaccinate, that still people who may have started out with hesitancy have become vaccinated, and we think that makes it a lot less likely that people get the disease. It doesn't make it impossible, but just as last week when I got a flu shot, that lessens the likelihood that I'll get the flu. And I must tell you, from a personal standpoint, having been double vaxxed for COVID, having been vaccinated just this past week for flu, earlier this year I received a shot for pneumonia, which is a one-time shot, given my age. I've had no ill effects from these vaccinations. So I understand different people have different philosophies, and they reference different examples of individuals and so forth. But what we're seeing in this county is a high vaccination rate and a lowering COVID rate. And those two things seem to be directly correlated. We'll also mention that in terms of the numbers that we're looking at, we have a larger population base now from the most recent census. We have over 1 million people in the county, 1,004,457 individuals. And even with that recalculated number, we still have a very high vaccination rate. So we're certainly doing what we can as a county government to make vaccinations more available to people. We have seen a good progress within our workforce. We have 10 departments, offices that are 100% vaccinated, a number of other offices that are in the 80%, 90% range, and then some that are in the 70% range and up. And when we see that in our workforce, that is a very positive sign. Hopefully we'll see more of that in the society as we try to get through this pandemic to the best of our ability. There will be a number of vaccination satellite locations, pop-up locations is the common term. I don't want you to think they happen overnight and they pop up. They're planned in advance, and they're often structured at local educational institutions, schools, as we've had in the last few weeks. I generally go out, as does Ken, to go to some of these centers, see how they're operating, make sure everything is going smoothly, and that we're accommodating the folks who haven't yet been vaccinated, who would like to be vaccinated. If you're interested in finding one of those locations for vaccinations, you can consult our website, westchestergov.com/health, and you'll see a location, and you can make an appointment if you'd like. All walk-ins are also welcome, so you can show up and decide on the moment to have a vaccination. We continue to operate the Westchester County Center as a vaccination site, and we also have our 2 health clinics, which have the capacity for COVID vaccinations as well. Again, consult the website because there are certain times that they're structured for. We have a health clinic in downtown White Plains here at 134 Court Street, and then we have one at 20 South Broadway in Yonkers, in downtown Yonkers. So between Yonkers, White Plains, and the county center site, which is a White Plains-Greenberg border location, we have a couple of those locations, and then, of course, there's still vaccinations being given out by various pharmacies all across the county that the state has structured and advances. We want to highlight that the Food and Drug Administration, Federal Food and Drug Administration, has approved giving a single booster dose of the Pfizer vaccine to select individuals. Those select individuals are identified. Again, we have on our county page what some of those categories are. We're looking to deal with people who have certain kinds of health situations, underlying health situations, who are in need of making sure that they have the most amount of antibodies in their system to fight the disease, and that is the purpose for the booster shot. There has not yet been an across-the-board agreement to do that for all age categories. I suspect because we have in our county and other places in the high percentile of people vaccinated, we would not automatically make it available to everybody all at once. What we did in the spring is probably what will happen again. It'll become age appropriate. those of a certain age and older will be made available for them, and then we'll move the age cohort down to get people who are younger, with the obvious exception that if you are sick, if you're immunocompromised, and you're in a more vulnerable situation, you're more likely to be allowed to get the booster shot sooner. Right now, we're only talking about boosters for those who took the Pfizer vaccine, and we'll see what medical science tells us about the Moderna and the J&J shot as well. All of that will come out. Governor Kathy Hochul announced today that she's implementing booster doses from a host of different areas. There was a letter from the health commissioner which outlined a host of different categories for which the booster dose matters. If you're 65 years of age and older, or residents in long-term care settings, nursing homes, if they're 50 to 64 years of age with underlying medical conditions, those are both factors, and then there's some other factors that involve age and so forth. We'll provide this for you on the website so you can take a look at it and determine if you are eligible for these shots. And we're still waiting to see what medical science will tell us about the other vaccines that have been out there and how we move forward on that. That is the COVID front for today. Next, we're going to move to the flood situation. It was almost 3 weeks ago, Wednesday, the 1st of September, going into the 2nd of September, Thursday, in which we had Hurricane Ida come through Westchester County, heavy amounts of rains in a very short period of time, causing flooding in a host of different areas, as worst flooding as we have seen in our lifetimes, top-level category flood experience. And the bouncing back from that is pivoted around what assistance we can get from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And Ken Jenkins is going to cover some of the activities of FEMA here in Westchester County. Ken.
Thanks, George. And because of the county executive's leadership and working with all the local municipalities, there's been an unprecedented amount of cooperation between all the levels of government, whether it's FEMA at the federal level with the federal officials, the state, the county, and all the local municipal officials working together to do everything as much as possible to help support those individuals. So the Yonkers site is still up and running, but in Mamaroneck there's been a change. It's been scaled back to have just the library location. They had 2 locations in Mamaroneck. Now there is just 1 at the library. Those have full services, so there's a bunch of partners that are at those locations. In addition, there was the mobile registration intake center that was done by FEMA by the request of various municipalities and in cooperation with Mamaroneck officials and Yonkers officials to have that mobile staff go along. The FEMA staff is available for those agencies, but there's no partners at the mobile site. So they will get people and point them out to the right direction and make sure that they refer them to whether it's a state agency or to a county agency like social services to be able to deal with that for temporary housing, food assistance, etc. But the main people at the mobile sites are FEMA folks that will do the registration process. So this week, starting today, at the Greenberg Library, so Monday to Wednesday, so the 27th to the 29th, at the Greenberg Library from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Thursday and Friday at the Portchester Senior Center / Village Hall. The Senior Center is in the back of the Village Complex in Portchester, and that's where the FEMA mobile van will be set up for the Mobile Registration Intake Center. That, again, is also 10 to 6, Thursday and Friday. Saturday, they'll be at the Senior Center. That'll be at 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And Sunday, they'll be back at the Greenberg Library from 9 to 5. So that's the mobile site, both at Greenberg Library, at the Portchester Senior Center, in addition to the Mamaroneck Library and to the Yonkers Public Library, which has a bunch of full services to do that. Over the weekend, the county executive was out and about, and in Greenberg, over 400 people participated in the FEMA mobile site. So it's definitely something that's necessary, and make sure that the folks can get out to do that. We have that information on our website, and we'll continue to work together with everyone in this recovery effort. Thanks, George.
Over the course of these 3.5 weeks, Since the flood came, the county has been involved in a number of different very specific activities that we have responsibility for. The federal government through FEMA is the one that provides the financial necessities that are essential in order for businesses and individuals to bounce back. We've had, from the county standpoint, a close working relationship with the communities that were hardest hit to make sure that all of the debris, the things that have been lost because of the flood, have been removed from the streets and the buildings and are properly disposed of. The county operates transfer stations and transports that debris to the burn plant in Peekskill and Charles Point, and we've worked very closely with the municipalities on that. We have also been able to organize some urgency housing through some of the local hotels for those people that are completely without a residence to work with, and we're certainly working in a number of contracts with some of our food pantries, Feeding Westchester, to try to provide some food on an emergency basis to those families that are affected. Some people lost everything. Quite a lot of people lost something, and so the working between the state, the federal, and the local governments, county and municipal governments is essential in this bounce back factor. But we're appreciative of our statewide officials for being here right at the outset of this to see the conditions themselves and understand what we're asking for. And certainly from a county standpoint, we're working with the local governments in a very cooperative fashion. So the FEMA role is compatible with the roles of our local governments, and hopefully will help people get back on their feet as fast as we can. Part of that getting back on their feet is the impacts on businesses. So we've asked Bridget Gibbons, who's our Director of Economic Development, to join us here today to talk a little bit about the issues that relate to businesses. A little bit different than from residential circumstances, but Bridget Gibbons will give us a little rundown. Bridget.
Thank you, County Executive. And under the County Executive's leadership, I'm happy to announce that the U.S. Small Business Administration has opened a Business Recovery Center in Westchester County. The Business Recovery Center provides one-on-one assistance to business owners to help them submit an application for a loan to help them recover from the impacts of Hurricane Ida. Businesses and private nonprofit organizations in Westchester County are eligible to apply for loans to cover not only physical damage, but also economic injuries, so loss of revenues. Businesses of any size, of all sizes, may borrow up to $2 million to repair or replace disaster damaged or destroyed real estate, machinery, equipment, inventory, and other business assets. Interest rates are as low as 2.855% for businesses. Loans are being approved quickly, so I urge businesses in need to apply for these loans as soon as possible. The Westchester Business Recovery Center is located at the New York Power Authority building at 123 Main Street in White Plains. The center is open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. It's not open on the weekends. A big thank you to NYPA for hosting this important center for our business community. It's really been impactful and helpful. Businesses can also apply online by going to disasterloanassistance.sba.gov. The SBA is also reachable by telephone at 1-800-659-2955 to get more information and to request a paper application. The phones are open from 8 to 8, so 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. And as always, if you have questions or need assistance, you can reach my office by calling 914-995-2900. Thank you.
I want to highlight that our efforts as an administration and working with the county legislature in this area that Bridget talks about includes other activities as well. We continue to operate our industrial development agency in the county, which provides some incentivization for different projects of all sort. Anyone who might be interested in knowing more about that can contact Bridget at the aforementioned number. We have an outreach to small businesses that is targeted through Shari Rosen Asher, who does director of policy and programs in that area. She's interactive with all the local chambers of commerces, and we're trying to help them financially to continue their marketing and organization efforts in each of the different little downtowns of Westchester County, because that is a generation of rebound economically from COVID and in some cases from the flood. And then also the IDA is there for some of the larger types of developments, and two that come to mind over the last 6 months is efforts to expand the employment base at Morgan in Harrison and at Regeneron in Tarrytown. In both of those cases, the IDA has had a role to play. So whether it's large business, small business, or recovering from a disaster, we are showing in the practical world the results necessary to try to be helpful to the business community, because we do know that that is compatible with our efforts to try to help individuals, and all of those things have to mesh together. So Bridget, thank you for your involvement and leadership on these things, and you're welcome to reach out to us and go forward. Just a couple more topics before we take any questions and then break. We continue to make progress on affordable housing. Last week, we had the opportunity to be with a West Hap grand opening of ribbon cutting for a facility in downtown Yonkers known as Daysprings Commons and Dayspring Community Center, a beautiful complex located right on Walnut and Elm in downtown Yonkers. We're very impressed to know that state money, some county assistance went into that project, and we can count that as another step forward in the affordable housing efforts in the county. Just 2 weeks ago, we cut the ribbon on Mayfair Apartments in Greenburgh. That project was one that the county was more centrally involved in, taking an abandoned facility and turning it into 75 units of affordable housing. A couple of months ago, we announced the project in Portchester was open, and we cut the ribbon there for 35 units. With each of these different projects, we're moving forward. I had the chance to be in Peekskill as part of my weekend and drove past the site that's being developed on South Street, 82 units of affordable housing, and that had some county assistance in it too. So all across the county, we're making every effort to advance affordable housing as a necessary part of our economic development, so that people who work in this county, in the communities and in the businesses and organizations of this county, have a shot at housing that they can afford. Because market rate housing, the demand is so great, but it's unreachable for people who work in many different fields of endeavor. Their compensation just doesn't equal what is necessary to have a market rate facility. So we have to develop affordable housing, and that's been on our docket as well. And then just one more comment before we break. We had just a few weeks ago recognition of Hispanic Heritage Month. There was a video that we shared with you and some of the activities that we did for outreach. Upcoming now in the next few days, at the beginning of next week, is the beginning of Italian Heritage Month. And we have a ceremony that's scheduled for October 5th at 3:15, where we'll be raising the Italian flag. We'll be doing this at Kensico Dam Plaza in Valhalla. We often do flag raisings here in front of the county office building. We're doing scaffolding work on the exterior of the building. It isn't as good a look for the purposes of the ceremony, so we're going to be moving it this year to Kensico Dam Plaza, which is a nice wide open area in Valhalla. That's on October 5th at 3:15 in the afternoon. You're welcome to join us whether you are or are not of Italian heritage. And as we try to show in this county, we try to recognize all the different ethnicities and ethnic groups that are part of this great mosaic that we are as a county. It's what strengthens us, and we're very proud of it. I happen to be partially of Italian-American heritage, so I'm very proud on that day, but I'm just as proud on other days for ethnicities that I don't share, because it is Westchester County embracing the totality of this county, which is really an exceptional community that all of us are part of. So if you're interested, put that on your calendar, October 5th at 3:15, Kensico Dam Plaza. We'll raise the Italian-American flag in recognition of Italian Heritage Month. With that, we're going to check with our folks to see what questions we may have. Carolyn Fortino, Deputy Director of Communications, is with us today. Carolyn, do we have some questions?
Yes, we have one question. It's from David Proper at the Journal News, and he asks, what is Westchester's involvement in the case there are healthcare shortages in the county due to the vaccine mandate?
Well, the vaccine mandate, as has been advanced, is for state workers, as I understand it, by Governor Hochul. It does not apply to Westchester County official workers. We have in Westchester County government a number of individuals, about 40 or so individuals, as a round number, who are nurses and perform a public health function. We do not operate, as the state does, nor as the city of New York does, we do not operate a hospital or a nursing home facility. Some governments do. And I think the effort I'm projecting, and Ken, correct me if you think I'm wrong, the efforts being made by the governor or the mayor of New York are for those nurses or those healthcare professionals who are actually in direct contact with patients. Now, we might have some direct contact with patients when we're testing, but it's a very small overlap between the county and the individual. So the mandate that's been talked about is a state mandate, and I believe a companion city mandate, and they're implementing that right now. They have a deadline date coming up. in our county, since we haven't made a mandate of it, but we have been aggressive about promoting additional vaccination, and we've had quite a bit of good success. As I've mentioned a couple of times already, we've got a number of county departments and offices that have 100% vaccinations within our workforce. We have a number of county departments that are in the 90% or the 80 percentile range, which is very comparable to the population at large. So we think that we're doing what's appropriate, and we're doing it a little bit differently without a mandate involved, but we're doing it with a very aggressive effort to promote this department by department, and we've had good success. Just over the course of the last 2 months, from mid-July till today, we've had an increase of 10% in the overall vaccination rate in the county. We already began at a 78% rate. So to add 10% at 78% to go to 88%, I think shows that the efforts we're making are successful. To mandate things oftentimes appeals to people's sense of things. But, the vaccine hesitancy out there is significant, and the vaccine resistance is even more significant. So we think to overcome the hesitancy issue, and we've had success doing this, it is better for us to talk through the difficulties that individuals have, and I think we've had some success in dealing with it. So the state's got a different strategy in terms of the mandate, as does the city of New York, and there are some issues. I think one of them is a court case on the mayor of New York's mandate that will determine whether teachers can be mandated to do that or not. In New York City, the municipal government controls the school districts. Outside of New York City, with the exception of the city of Yonkers, in the rest of Westchester County, the local governments, including the county, do not run the schools, so we don't have the authority to do that kind of a mandate, and I don't have the authority as county executive to do an across-the-board mandate, either for masks or for vaccinations. What mandate authority I have on masking, we've used already here internally for those people who work in the county government and have indoor assignments. We have a little bit different strategy for those who are outdoors. And I think the proof is in the pudding, or the results. The results are that we have high level of vaccination, we have a dropping level of infection, and that's really the effort here. It is not just an ideological standard that we're trying to meet, either on one side of the equation or the other, but we're trying to get to a practical point where our results show that there's less infection in Westchester County, and so far we've made progress, given the Delta variant throwing us off our game. So we thank David Proper from the Journal News Lowhud for that question. No other questions. So if there's anyone else from the press who are picking this up, live feed, please feel free to give us a call, 995-2900. Ask for the Communications Department and Carolyn Fortino or Lisa Reyes or one of the other folks here would be happy to help you and try to get an answer to your question. And you're welcome to reach out to us as you see fit. For everyone else, we intend to give another update a week from today at 2 o'clock. We'll be in the month of October by then. And of course, we want to see from a COVID standpoint what the increasingly cooler weather represents as more of our society heads indoors. And will that be a factor, or can we overcome that factor with vaccinations, masking, and intelligent public policy behaviors? So I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, again with Ken Jenkins. We thank you for watching. We'll see you a week from today. In the meantime, be safe.